We're talking about how to start an LLC in Arkansas. And what you can see behind me here is I'm casting this document, and we're going to be going through this checklist of exactly how to start your LLC. But before we get to that, I want to make mention of something I like to call the LLC dumpster fire. And this is where you get an LLC set up, but you do things incorrectly, or you're not educated on everything you need to know. And then later down the line, when you need that LLC, it fails you and costs you tens of thousands of dollars. All right. I know that sounds dramatic, but you'll see exactly what I'm talking about in a few minutes. So we're going to be covering terms such as piercing the corporate veil, commingling funds, registered agent, and pass-through taxation. And we're also going to be talking about like after LLC formation, like how the LLC renewal process works, or business licenses and permits that you may need for your business. Now, to better understand these things, what we're going to do is we're going to zoom out a little bit, and we're going to talk about what an LLC actually does for your business so we can better explain all these topics. So what we'll do is we'll open up this drop down, and we're going to talk right now about the fact that an LLC offers limited liability protection, and then we're going to get into pass-through taxation. Let's look at an example of owning a coffee shop without an LLC. This will really help to kind of button everything together for you. What we have here is the business owner in the center. On the left-hand side are their personal assets, such as their home, car, and bank account. And on the right-hand side are their business assets, such as the point of sale, business bank account, the physical location, the espresso machine, the lights. All of this is directly tied back to the business owner, which creates a lot of liability. Now, if we go to the example of owning an LLC that owns a coffee shop, it looks very different. Now you have the business owner on the left-hand side with their personal assets. And on the right-hand side, you have Acme Coffee LLC, we're calling it. And all those assets are within that LLC. The red division in the center here, this is something called the corporate veil. Now, you may recall in the beginning, we talked about piercing the corporate veil. We're going to explain that right now through the example of commingling funds. Now, let's say that you get your business set up and you don't get a business bank account set up right away. Instead, you run transactions through your personal bank account. What that is something called commingling funds. The reason that's important is if somebody were to be hurt in your coffee shop and they decide to sue you, what the attorney suing you is going to try to do is something called piercing the corporate veil. To be able to do this, what they need to do is get a judge to agree with them that you have done something in your LLC out of pocket. You're doing something incorrect. And if they find out that you've been commingling funds and the judge agrees with them, they're going to grant them permission to pierce the corporate veil. What that means is this division in the center right here dissolves, and they can come after your business assets and your personal assets. The whole purpose of an LLC is to have this division between your two asset classes. And if you do things incorrectly, the LLC is pretty much rendered useless. So that's why it's so important not only to get it set up, but make sure that you're maintaining it properly and you understand all these terms that we're going to be talking about in this video. Now, next what I want to talk about though is explanation of pass-through taxation. So let's say that Acme Coffee LLC grossed $140,000 last year, $90,000 of expenses resulting in a $50,000 net income. What happens is the IRS is not taxing Acme Coffee LLC. They're taxing the individual business owner, right? So that $50,000 of net income passes through, also known as flow-through taxation. So you may hear it called either one, but basically I want to let you know that the IRS is taxing the individual here. The reason that this is kind of nice is it's a lot cheaper if you're having somebody else prepare your taxes as opposed to going with like an S corporation or a C corporation. But one of the things that's cool is the LLC is also very flexible as well. When you start making around $50,000 of net income, there's an opportunity where you can apply an S Corp designation to reduce your tax burden. This is just something I want to mention because we're going to be talking about this in the third video of this series, because this series again is about getting your LLC set up, but making sure it's done correctly, making sure you pick the right path for yourself, but also know that down the line, there's other things you can do to optimize your business, your LLC from a tax perspective as well. What we're going to talk about here is the actual checklist to start your LLC. First one right here, get this checklist for yourself. There's going to be a QR code on the screen that you can scan. There's also a link in the description below. It is free to get this checklist for yourself. And it's pretty cool because it's more than a checklist. What we have down here is a glossary of terms. So these are things that are common within the LLC. But then this video here is worth the watch. Nice little face there, right? But there's a common LLC scam out there where it may cost you a couple $100s that you didn't have to spend. So there's just cool resources here. But in the bonuses section, there's an AI chatbot here. So you can do stuff like how to start an LLC in Arkansas. So when you do this, it's going to give you a step-by-step list specific to your state of how to start that LLC. Or you can say, how do I register an EIN? Which we're going to actually explain here in a minute if you're not familiar with what an EIN is. But we're also going to, you can use this for brainstorming names for your LLC. There's also a free charitable opportunity. So there's a way that you can give $20 to charity when you're getting your LLC set up. The yearly accounting calendar, highly recommend this. We're going to talk about this in a future video in this series. I know this looks overwhelming when you're looking at it, but we're going to break this down and make it really simple for you as well. What I want to talk about now is deciding which route you want to go. You have the state website, you have online legal tools, these LLC services online, and also a business attorney. Business attorney is going to be by far the most expensive. You might be looking anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 to get set up. The online LLC services, a lot of them have a $0 plus state fee package, so it's the same price as the state websites. But then the state website, there's no upsells, so you're not going to try to sell you a bunch of other services that you may or may not need. For the purpose of this video, we're going to go through the state website and specifically the old-fashioned route of looking at the PDF and kind of just explaining a few parts of that so that you know what you're looking at when it comes to filing your articles of organization. Next, we're going to talk about deciding on a business name for your LLC. The important thing here is that you don't need the perfect LLC name. Frankly, you can have what's called a DBA, a doing business as, or a fictitious name that lives within your LLC. So the LLC could just be like your name LLC or something like that, right? But then you can have, like, let's go to the coffee shop example. Like Acme Coffee LLC is a terrible name, but you could have Espresso Yourself Cafe be the doing business as name, which is kind of like the brand name. It can exist underneath the LLC. So what is important though is you need a unique LLC name. Once you have an LLC name picked out for yourself, so there's a state directory link here and you can go to Arkansas, and what you'll find is this PDF here, and we're just going to go over this a little bit. So this is a certificate of organization for a limited liability company. So you have the name of the company, and then number 2 is the address, the principal office address, and number 3 is the thing I want to highlight here. It's the name and address of the registered agent of this company shall be. Now, what a registered agent is a third party that handles important documentation and communication for your business. Let's say with the example that you're being sued, you're going to get something called a service to process notice. This is basically that you need to show up to court. That registered agent is going to make sure that you get that information. You're showing up to court with all the necessary documents and information that you need. So it's a really important part of managing and maintaining your LLC. The things you need to know here is the registered agent, you have to have one on file. They have to have a physical mailing address within the state of Arkansas, and it cannot be a P.O. box. Those are the things that you must know. Now, what you have here is the name and title of at least one officer for franchise tax purposes. The franchise tax currently is $150 for an LLC. That is something that you're going to pay every single year just to renew your LLC and keep it compliant with the state. So that is really important that you have that in there. And then you're just going to date this, sign it, and then what you can see here is just the company franchise tax information. So again, where are they going to be able to get this information, where they're going to send it. Federal tax ID, we're going to talk about that in a minute as well. So you can have that information for you as well. Now, once you have the PDF, what you're going to do is you're going to mail it into the state. And of course, you can go through the state website, which is more of an online filing process, which is what I'd recommend. You'll pay the state filing fee, and then you can move forward with getting your LLC set up and then look at some of the things we're going to talk about in a moment. Now, let's say you've registered your LLC name, you've written your articles of organization, and assigned a registered agent. I think I kind of breezed past it, but the registering your LLC name is basically like buying a domain name. You don't own a website really, you just own a domain. You haven't set up the website. You register your LLC name. That is something that you can do as a little half step before you actually file the articles of organization. But then once you do get everything set up and you've paid the fee, you can create and sign an LLC operating agreement. This is not required, but it is a really good idea. And the reason for that is it's a situation where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Now, let's say that you had a business partner and you guys just blow it up. You have like 19 coffee shops, right? And at one point that business partner says they want out of the business. Well, how do you handle that situation? Well, if you have an operating agreement in place and it's talking about who the members and managers are, what are their roles and responsibilities? And it may cover things such as what happens if somebody needs to exit the LLC. It's already spelled out for you. You avoid and ignore the tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees trying to figure out how to pay this person out of the business. So an LLC operating agreement, again, ounce of prevention was worth a pound of cure. It's definitely something recommended. All the online LLC services will have boilerplate templates that you can use. If you have a more unique situation, you can also hire a business attorney to dial this in for you. So that is going to be something that you definitely want to do. After LLC formation, we're going to set up an EIN. There's an IRS link here, and what that is an employer identification number. This is like a social security number for your business, and it allows the IRS to identify your business, but you're going to need an EIN if you have employees on staff that are on payroll. Also, if you're applying for things such as like business insurance, a loan, office space, a lot of times they'll ask you for a social security number or your EIN. The EIN number is going to be much more professional to provide in those instances, and it's completely free to get this set up. So I'd recommend just going through these steps to do that. The online LLC services also, they will do this for you, but it is usually lumped into like a mid-tier package, so there's a few extra dollars to have them do it for you. Next, we're going to talk about obtaining business licenses and permits for your LLC. There's a helpful SBA resource you can check out here, which gives more information here. But the easiest way I've found to explain this is through the example of owning a brewery. Let's say you're starting a brewery and you're going to be brewing beer, distributing beer, and serving beer on premise. Well, those three things can require different licenses and permits. Of course, you need a license, a permit to serve beer, but you may need a different one for distributing beer. And those things can happen on the federal level, the state level, and also the local level. What I would suggest is you can start on the local level. You can just call up your town clerk, all right? So whatever town or city you're in, you find the town clerk's number. You can also email them, but just say, hey, I'm starting a business. This is what it is. I'm just wondering what licenses and permits I may need on the town level and the county level, and if you have any information on the state level. Some of them may be helpful in regards to the state level. Others may just say you got to go check with the state. What you could do is do a Google search, just like Arkansas business licenses and permits, and that's going to take you to the state website. The number one result is always the state website, and then you can go through that way. And then on the federal level, when you get this actual document here, one of the emails that we send you, which is a follow-up, is the resource for the federal level. It'll show you what companies are required to have licenses and permits on the federal level. Now, all this also can be done for you through the LLC Services for an extra fee. It ranges from like $100 to $150. They'll make sure that you get all the proper licenses and permits set up too. In the next video, what we're going to talk about is actual LLC formation. Like, what is the difference between the state site, the online tools, or a business attorney? We're going to get into things such as the fees associated with setting up your LLC. We actually have an embedded cost calculator on this page, which is going to show you down to the dollar how much it costs 5 years out to get your LLC. We have a star rating system that we're going to get into, just comparing different things. This one's interesting. This is why state websites become a pain, and it has to do with domestic versus foreign LLCs. So we're going to explain that. We also have a list of questions that are worth asking yourself. And all of these questions may not apply to you today, but again, it's something where it gets your brain thinking about things down the line. Like, what happens if we want our own office space, or I want to start buying rental properties through the LLC? These types of things. Again, I would highly suggest getting this free checklist for yourself with the link in the description below. And we're going to catch you in this next video and make sure that you don't overspend by up to $1,500, which is a very common mistake that new LLC owners make. So we'll catch you in the next video.